The LSU job is open down in Baton Rouge. Brian Kelly's out after 4 years, 34-14 record. And my friends, this is going to be the domino effect that changes the entire coaching search of the 2026 carousel. This is a premier job. This is one of those jobs that I consider you can't say no to. It is elite of elite. And if the right person's in charge, it may end up being the best job in the country. There are going to be names that are floated out there that won't even be considered. And then there are names that aren't being floated out there that are reaching out to their agents right now that are inquiring, could I actually become a candidate for this position? That's how big of a job LSU is. And we got to talk about it. So who are the names you need to know? Let's break it all down. Welcome on into SEC Unfiltered. It's Cole Thompson here. Like the video, hit the ring notification because we talk college football, coaching searches, LSU daily. Download the podcast version of the show wherever you get your podcast listening systems. Follow us on the socials. Link in the description and check out all of our great work found at secunfiltered.com. And as always, we're proudly brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. Go visit FanDuel.com/SECU. Get started today with $250 in bonus bets when you win your first $5 bet. You may want to make some plays right now on who is going to be the next head coach fired or the head coach hired down in Death Valley this upcoming offseason. So go on over to FanDuel.com/SECU and join today. Brian Kelly out after going 34-14, 70% win rate. Most coaches, you would feel like at that standpoint would be good. But you got to realize LSU is just not one ordinary job. It is a labor of love, hard work, and honestly, it takes a psycho to run the program down in Death Valley. It takes a special individual who has to put in more hours than you actually think are imaginable in the day. You have to find hours to be able to build this program to where it is supposed to be. And the good news is you have the resources to do so. And Brian Kelly never did that. Brian Kelly never embraced what was this part of the LSU, which is Louisiana. It's a big deal. You have to be able to build the relationships with those in the community, with those around the public eye, those in high standing that make sure that you're able to have a foreground that constantly is going to allow you to win in every turn. And Brian Kelly never wanted to do that. He wanted to do things his way. He wanted to make sure that he was able to build a program in his image. And ultimately, it came back to bite him in the ass. Because the 70% win rate is good enough for most teams to say, we'll give you a year to figure things out. 3 losses, and you're fired. 14 total losses in 4 years, and he's out of a job. It just shows you that he wasn't the right fit. And whoever is the one making the next hire, because they don't have a school president right now, Scott Woodward, we don't know if he is going to be the athletic director that much longer there. Whoever is the one to go ahead and make this decision can't mess this up. And so, again, this is LSU we're talking about. In my opinion, it is a bona fide top 5 job in college football. I think it's top 3. There are people out there that will vouch and say it's number 1. And when it's run properly, I can't argue with them. I can't. That's how good of a job it is to have the entire state of Louisiana on your side. And I'll tell you what, if you embrace the Couillons, if you embrace that type of culture, they will reward you in abundances that you never thought was possible. And that's what's going to take for the next head coach to have to come on in here. So you have to nail this hire. And you can't settle. You can't just go for the rising star, the big up-and-comer position. You have to nail this. And it has to be somebody that you know is going to put this program in a better position than when it was found. And right now, it is not a good spot. There are a lot of things behind closed doors that we do not know in the public eye when it comes to LSU that have got to be fixed. And I'm not sure that that's going to be enticing enough for some coaches to go ahead and leave their cushion spot. I don't think that Dan Lanning is one, personally. So he is not going to be named on this list, even though there are a ton of people that would tell you Dan Lanning is the perfect fit. And he would be. But I'm not turning down what I got in Eugene, Oregon right now to go ahead and head down to Baton Rouge, where I don't know who is the school president. I don't know what's going to be the status of the athletic director and how much money is in my resources. I don't think Kalen DeBoer is going to be in the running. I don't think you'll see Ryan Day get a phone call. I don't think you'll see Mike Elko in College Station after what he did on Saturday night get a phone call. I don't think Steve Sarkisian is going to get a phone call. So those are names that we could throw out there that certainly would make a lot of sense. I don't think that they're involved. But there are names that you are going to have to know. And you got to start off with the big fish, and you have to bring it up. Does Nick Saban want to come back? I don't think Nick Saban will ever coach again in college football. I don't think that it's even a thought that has crossed his mind. But Saban was the one to build LSU to what it is today. Saban was the one who decided to truly embrace what was Louisiana and create a standard for every coach at Orgeron, Les Miles, and supposedly Brian Kelly to follow when he departed for Miami to go to the NFL on what it takes to win at the highest level in LSU. He did that. Won every recruit, won every position battle, won every single opportunity to go ahead and boost up the boosters, won every argument that he needed to. And he has some unfinished business there. There are some people that believe that LSU would be the greatest job and currently the Alabama of college football if Nick never left for the NFL. And so, does he feel like there's unfinished business? You got to swing. If you are Scott Woodward, you have got to at least make the phone call. I don't think he will. I think he's comfortable where he is. I think he can retire knowing that he is the all-time winningest coach in national championships because of what he did at Bama and LSU. I don't think Mysterio wants to go back, but I will say this. Worth a phone call. You have to do it. It's worth a phone call to South Bend, Indiana to make a deal with Marcus Freeman. Marcus Freeman reportedly has been rumored to be at least inquired about with the Florida job. You don't take the Florida job over Notre Dame, at least in my personal opinion. LSU, we can have a conversation. And a lot of people thought that LSU was going to get both coordinators when they hired Brian Kelly. And so that was a name that was going to gain a lot of traction. He was going to potentially be in the running for a head coaching job in a few years. And if you did a good job down in Baton Rouge and had a solid defense in year one, then maybe we're not talking about Brian Kelly that way. But what he was able to do is turn that into replacing Brian Kelly in South Bend, Indiana. And all the things that were so negative about what he was doing up there are not a problem for him. And it's why they're in the college football playoff hunt every single season. It's why they're bringing in better recruiting classes. It's why the transfer portal is working in his favor. It's why we're seeing constant names be punched on out into the NFL draft and players are leaving better suited for it. But you have a good job. You're in a position to where you don't have to play in a conference. You always are going to be in the hunt for the college football playoff. You have your own TV revenue distribution by yourself with NBC. You're able to go ahead and utilize every single advantage in the transfer portal. You're able to give out certain scholarships that give you a certain edge over other opponents. You're really recruiting with yourself every single year. If you're not fully bought into LSU the way that Brian Kelly wasn't bought into LSU, it's not meant for you. But you make the phone call. You have to make the phone call for Scott Woodward. And you have to make the phone call over to Oxford, Mississippi, and you got to at least see what Lane Kiffin wants. And this is the one that I think, honestly, is going to be the first and only phone call if Scott Woodward has his way, or better yet, if LSU has its way. I am pretty vocal on Twitter talking about Lane and what I think of him getting the Florida job and how I do believe that while there are definitely ties to the state, certainly it feels like that everybody in that building, Scott Strickland, wants to make sure that he is doing everything possible to land Lane. I can see a scenario where you turn down Florida and stay at Ole Miss. Ole Miss is a happy location. Ole Miss, you've been able to build a lot of equity. You have a lot of things that are going on in your favor behind closed doors. You basically can go up to Keith Carter and say, one of these two jobs want me, and if you don't give me everything that I desire for the long term, I will take one. And they're going to have to listen to you because if you've earned it. People forget that Ole Miss never had a 10-win season before Lane Kiffin arrived in the regular season. Never had an 11-win season in program history. They've done both. They're knocking on the door of going to the college football playoff. They should be a playoff team this year. He's accomplished everything that you could imagine. Recruiting has gone up. The transfer portal numbers have drastically been in his favor. And on top of all of that, you're seeing more growth and development of players being retained and going off to the NFL and representing Ole Miss in the highest standard. So Lane's built himself a large bit of equity to tell anybody that he wants, if you do not do X, Y, and Z, they will. And he can use that as fuel to Keith Carter. He can use that as fuel to Scott Woodward. He can use that as fuel to Scott Strickland. The Florida job, I believe that he would be interested in. And maybe he'll take it. He could. Ties to the state. His father having ties to the state as well. Being in Tampa for years. Layla being at Gainesville. He idolized Steve Spurrier growing up. It's a perfect fit. All the things make sense. But I could see him turning it down. I don't know if he can turn down LSU. I say that kindly. I genuinely do not know if anybody who is offered this job can turn it down. Because of when you actually build the relationships that we have seen Lane build in Oxford, and we watch him do it at a place in Baton Rouge, where the resources are all you, where you're recruiting in the state against really no one, against your own self on if you want this kid or if you're okay with him going and playing at Tennessee, or you're okay with him going and playing at Alabama or Vanderbilt or Georgia or any one of these places. Because again, when you're in Louisiana, you are the only school. Kids do not dream of playing War Eagle and Roll Tide when they're living in Louisiana like they do in Alabama. They're not thinking about Georgia Tech and Georgia when they're playing out in Georgia. They're not thinking about all the schools out in North Carolina or Texas or California like they do when they grow up there. You are the state school. Every kid wants to wear the purple and gold. Every kid wants to show up on Saturday night in Death Valley. Every kid wants to be making the highlight play and bringing pride back to the state. And I'll tell you what, no kid that wants to be at Louisiana State University turns down Louisiana State University. And that is what makes LSU, in my opinion, a top 3 job and arguably could be number 1 if you're able to master that. And Lane's been doing that slowly behind closed doors at Ole Miss. Look at the numbers. Look at the retainment of talent that we constantly see. No longer go look at Alabama. No longer go look at Georgia. No longer go look at Tennessee. There are still some names that go out there. But a lot of them view Ole Miss now as a premier destination. And it's Mississippi. And you can do a lot of that down in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. And if you get the buy-in from the boosters and you're able to turn the tides in that standpoint, it's extremely hard to say no. I love Ole Miss. Ole Miss is probably one of the biggest reasons why I have a fan base. I get constant appreciation posts from Ole Miss people daily. And I don't think that it's me being harboring towards you saying that losing Lane is the thing that is going to happen. He may end up turning it down. And if he does, he's locked in for the foreseeable future because there's not a scenario outside of Kalen DeBoer going off to the NFL or Steve Sarkisian leaving Austin where I see Lane Kiffin leaving if he does not take one of these 2 jobs. But if this is a move that LSU wants and LSU has made it clear that Lane is the only option that they're going to target, Lane's getting the job. That's just the bottom line. And it's not to be malice and it's not to be judgmental or hurtful to anybody down in Oxford. It's just the reality of what is a position like this. It is extremely hard to tell that program no. Because Brian Kelly didn't tell that program no. He saw the money. He saw the potential. He saw what he believed of buying the right players and bringing them down to the South. They'd win a championship. Ultimately, it backfired for him. I don't think it would backfire for Lane. So that's my first and only phone call I'm making right now. But we got to do a couple more names that just are going to be brought up because if you have to. Number 1, and maybe I'm alone on this one, I call Clark Lee. Clark Lee, for what he has done at Vanderbilt, turning the program into a perennial contender the last year and a half, is really promising. Now, there will be some people out there that will say, well, remember his track record before Diego Pavia and before Jerry Kill and before all of these other pieces were brought on into Nashville. And I would say you're right. That's a very fair assessment. But physically, defensively, he was able to work with Brian Kelly and turn that defense around when he was in South Bend, which is why he got the job in Nashville to be the head coach of his alma mater. You know you're going to get great defense. That's been a hindrance toward your unavailable success the last few years before Blake Baker arrived. You also know that he is going to put all of his faith in the offensive side of the ball and make sure that he is able to bring in not just the right coordinators, but the right fit for his team to be able to take strides moving forward. And I think that he's going to take a lot of information from those who are running the program down in Baton Rouge to say, this is what we do that we know is going to work. These are the type of kids that you can go in and recruit. These are the type of kids you can go and develop. Why would you not want to give them a shot? Now, if you want to say it's because there's only been 1 full year of dominant success, totally understand. But I think that you at least got to give him a phone call if Lane were to go to Gainesville or if Lane were to go ahead and turn the job down. I think you got to make a phone call up to Columbia, Missouri and do the exact same thing with Eli Drinkwitz. And I know that there are many people rolling their eyes and going, we do not want that dweeb anywhere near our program. Well, let me make something abundantly clear to you. That dweeb is number 3 in wins in the SEC since 2023 at Missouri. He's turned Missouri into a pipeline spot and a hotbed when it comes to transfer portal recruiting. And when it comes to the actual recruiting, they've been top 15 2 of the last 3 years. He has punched out more NFL talent than you actually know on the top of your head. He also is a great developer of quarterback play, which is something that is really important if you want to be successful down in Death Valley on a Saturday night as the sun sets in the western sky. He's a dork. He's a dweeb. But you want to know what? He's authentic. And honestly, authenticity sells nowhere else better than a place like Louisiana. How many people did I see automatically call out Brian Kelly when he decided to pull that foghorn leghorn BS? And they knew instantaneously not going to be a fit. It's not going to be that way with Drake. He's going to tell you as is. He's going to treat this program with his whole integrity. And more specifically, he is going to be a no-nonsense type of person in front of recruits. He's more specifically going to make sure that every single person that walks in that building understands what is the assignment. Because it's worked for him out in Columbia. It can work for him out in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. I have to believe that that's going to be the case. I think you make a phone call to Kenny Dillingham out in Tempe, Arizona. What he's been able to accomplish, hot shot offensive mind, the ability to work with quarterbacks and quickly develop them and turn them into promising projects, whether it be Bo Nix when he was out in Eugene, whether it be when he was working down in Tallahassee, Florida at FSU, whether it be when he was on Memphis' staff working with Bradley Ferguson, what he's done with Sam Levitt to turn a program that went 3-9 one year into a legit threat for a Big 12 title and a college football playoff berth. If you didn't have too many injuries early on this year, you may have ended up winning next game. Young player, up-and-comer, at his alma mater, so it's going to be very hard to say no to. I completely understand. But I think you got to make the phone call, see if he's interested. You bring him down to the SEC, you bring in some of the recruits that he already has on his staff. I think the offensive identity that he's been able to accomplish at this point is a selling point. I think that if you're able to retain a guy like Blake Baker as your defensive coordinator, which may be a very tall ask at this moment, I think is a very important deal, because if it allows you to probably keep many of those defensive names in the process. He's proven he can win. He's proven he can get top 20 wins. He's proven that he's been able to get the highest honor of success when it comes to his standard. Now, again, small sample size, only 3 years as a head coach, maybe not a good enough selling point for you, but enough to buy into. I'm taking a swing in the dark on the next one. I think you call Josh Heupel. I think you have to call Josh Heupel at Tennessee, because the last thing you want to do is see another team in the SEC surpass you and make the strides in the right direction to where you are no longer viewed as an instant threat. Tennessee is knocking on the door to be that team. They are. They're right there with Mizzou. They're right there with Ole Miss. They're going to be right there with Oklahoma if they are able to write some things. They're right there if Florida gets back in the saddle. They're not at Alabama standard. They're not at Georgia standard, but they certainly can be at LSU standard instantaneously. It's a high-scoring offense that's able to average 40-plus points per season, and I think that if you were able to retain as many defensive type of talents down there, it would work. It really would. You'd have an offensive spark that was very similar to what we saw in the days of Jaden Daniels when he was running the show on the way to New York City for the Heisman Trophy, and you hurt a team in the process up in Knoxville. Now, he's very content up in Knoxville. I can tell you right now, I don't think that you would see him leave for any job out there. But it is LSU, and there's an opportunity to have as many quality receivers, as many talented names, and as many talented offensive personnel members that can make your team scoot down the field with ease. Has to be on a short list. One that I know people are going to be pissed off at with me, but I don't really care. I think you got to call James Franklin. James Franklin and Brian Kelly have a lot of things in common, like not being able to win the big game, but James Franklin wins. James Franklin at Penn State would have gone to 8 college football playoff appearances. He's already had experience coaching in the SEC. It was back in 2013, but he was able to turn Vanderbilt into a program that at least had some sustainability and had a lot of high risk and success. And he did it back-to-back years to show it wasn't just a fluke. It was actually something that you could buy a little bit of stock into. So he's a name that at least you got to throw out there. I don't think that he would be wanting to land there. I think he wants to go probably to somewhere more so like the ACC. But he got a 68% win rate. He was phenomenal when it came to games outside top 15 opponents. So maybe this is a fit. Maybe it's not. I can tell you that LSU fans would be excited about it, but I think you at least have to make the phone call. I think you have to at least make a phone call and see, once again, what's Jeff Brohm doing? Does he want to leave? Jeff Brohm constantly is putting out massive numbers offensively year in and year out. They're great inside red zone efficiency. He lets his defensive coordinators run the show, and he doesn't try to overstep. The other thing that you got to realize is he is a proof of concept that it works everywhere. His system continuously progresses. Look at what he did at Western Kentucky. Back-to-back Conference USA champions. Look at what he did at Purdue. You have no idea what Purdue as a program is nationally. It is a bottom dweller. It is a very challenging place to win. And he took that program all the way to Indianapolis to play for a Big Ten title. They upset and dismantled number 1 Ohio State. They were able to hold their own in top 10 games at that vicinity. And then he goes on into Louisville. And the last 3 years, we constantly see him get to 9+ wins. On top of that, he guarantees you at least one ranked victory in the top 15. And 90% of the time, it comes on the road. So he knows how to go ahead and coach in a position where his back is against the wall and people are throwing things down his gullet, making sure that it is a hostile, toxic place, and he blocks out the noise. There's not a lot of coaches that would be able to dismantle Carson Beck the way that we saw on a Friday night. Louisville did. Made it look easy. Louisville's still in the hunt for a college football playoff berth that nobody seems to be talking about at this point. So you got to give him a phone call. And the same thing goes down to Atlanta with Georgia Tech. I think Brent Key absolutely should be in the running for every single major job in college football. And the reason why is because if he does two things really well. Number one, authenticity, a selling point that would work out in Baton Rouge. And number two, offensive line development. Folks, the ability to win in the trenches is all you need in the SEC. And he was an offensive line coach underneath Nick Saban. So the teachings and the laurels and the standards that were set when Saban was running the show down in Death Valley, they've been instilled in Brent Key. Now, the problem is, again, much like every other coach that I've named, they're at their alma mater. They're finding success. Georgia Tech is on the way to being a college football playoff team. They do not have a game where outside of maybe the Georgia matchup in Atlanta, they are going to be the underdog. They're not. They're going to be great in every standard. But he knows how to develop a staff. He knows how to have a great disciplined team. He's a good evaluator of talent. He understands what it comes to when working with a salary cap structure. He knows when to not overspend, and he knows when to make sure that you go ahead and you actually put the right resources in certain locations. And look at where Georgia Tech is. Georgia Tech took Kirby Smart to 8 overtimes last year. That's a special coach. That's one that belongs at a premier program. And again, it's one of those things to where you may see him turn it down, but it's very hard for me not to envision this to be a name that you at least have got to make a phone call to. If people start to say no, or they're getting other jobs, or they're content where they are, guess what? You got to start swinging. This is one where I think you could buy a little bit more stock into because you believe in the focus and the identity of who he is as a coach. And that might be a good selling point. I think you call Joe Brady. And I don't know if Joe Brady would ever take the job. I don't know if fans want Joe Brady back there because of how long it's been since 2019. But he was the mastermind behind Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase. And one of the things that people continuously talked about with Brian Kelly was he alienated former alumni. You think that Joe Brady's going to do that? You think knowing after his time when he was with the Saints, the players that were being progressed and moving on into the NFL who came from LSU, those who he was able to self-evaluate and scout before he arrived there, and then those who afterwards he saw while there, you think for 1 second he doesn't understand the value of having great leadership from those who have previously walked in their footsteps? Give me a break. Oh, and by the way, he's working with an MVP quarterback currently in Buffalo, and they're having a phenomenal season once again. So does he want to come back to the college ranks? Is he waiting for his NFL job to open on up? Is that something that he is trying to maybe feel out and wonder what is going to be the right course of action for me? I'm not sure, but I think at least you got to entertain it. I think you also have to entertain one G5 name. And it's because he knows the lay of the area, and it's John Sumrall. And John Sumrall is your swing and a prayer that hopefully this will be the one that hits, and that we struck gold on a very cheap, team-friendly deal that we know that we're going to invest into very long-term down the line. But my God, if we hit, we are striking oil. John Sumrall knows the lay of the land. John Sumrall knows what it takes to win. This is not a G5 coach that you're just saying, oh, hot shot season, Sunbelt Billy, we're getting our version of him. No, this is a guy that proved when he was at Troy, I'm going to take a Sunbelt team and I'm going to turn them into a legit threat that you could beat up on some Power 4 teams. And then he goes to Tulane and he goes and he gets a bunch of kids that have never played together before and he turns them into an AAC threat. And then he loses a bunch of kids this offseason to the transfer portal because they get opportunities to go elsewhere. And he brings in a bunch of kids. And outside of a loss to Ole Miss, he has been in every single game. It hasn't been pretty, but they once again are in the hunt for the playoff. They got to beat Memphis, and they're right there alongside the Tigers and the Bulls to be the AAC representative and in the 12-team postseason picture. He gets recruiting. He understands development of talent. More specifically, he is going to have his name mentioned at every single other Power 4 job available. So do you make that call and say, we're willing to give you as much to work with as possible. It just will be a lesser salary, but you're at LSU. Do you think he takes it? Because he's going to be offered Auburn if it opens on up. He's going to be in the conversation for, I think, Virginia Tech. He's going to be in the conversation for Kentucky if it opens on up. NC State if it opens on up. He'll be in the conversation for Florida State if it opens on up. Penn State's probably one of the only few schools that he won't be. Do you make the call? Do you bank on his evaluation of talent and say, that's good enough? And do you then, if all else fails, go for a name that I don't think anybody has brought up yet? And I think it's one that you have to consider. Do you swing for Dabo? Do you? Dabo won. Dabo needs to change scenery. I don't know if it'll work, but I can tell you what, Dabo's one of these people who is all about buying into the culture. He's not into the transfer portal. He is all into making sure that we get homegrown talent. And if Dabo was going to make a swing, if Dabo was going to go ahead and bring in a national championship caliber program elsewhere outside of South Carolina, would this be the fit? I don't know if it would. I don't like it. I don't think that it should be a conversation. But you're not losing talent to the state of Louisiana elsewhere. Dabo will make sure that every single name that he wants that is currently residing in the state lines is not going anywhere else but Death Valley on Saturdays. That's his calling card. That's who he is. That's what his mantra has been. And he wants a fresh start. Scott Woodward made this play before. He was at Texas A&M. He brought in Jimbo Fisher. If Scott Woodward is making this call, is he doing the same thing? Is he going out and he's swinging for a national championship coach to come into the program and actually build this thing right? Is it going to work? I don't think so. But you have to try. It's LSU. Again, this is a job that you don't turn down if given the opportunity to. It is one that you look at and say to yourself, I have got an opportunity to change my life forever. And Baton Rouge is a great place when you have the right people that you know. When you're in the right places in the right time, it's very easy to buy it into. Brian Kelly didn't want to do that, and ultimately it's why he was shown the door within 4 years. There are expectations down in Death Valley. Tiger Stadium is not for the faint of heart. You need to get the right coach in there. Is Dabo that guy? Who's to say? I personally think it's Lane Kiffin. But who am I going to want to be the one that's judging? At the end of the day, it all comes down to who they think is the right fit. But let me know in the comment section down below, who do you think is going to be the next head coach at LSU? Like, review, hit subscribe, and if you haven't already, make sure you go visit fanduel.com/SECU. See, here's the thing. I can tell you who I think are going to be some names on the hot board. There will be some names thrown out there that you've never even heard of or that we didn't bring up or nobody brought up. And here's what you'll do. You go ahead and make that play. You get $250 in bonus bets if you win with $5 on that bet. So sign up today at fanduel.com/SECU. Bet on the World Series, bet on the NFL season, bet on the college football playoff. Next head coach to be fired, same day parlays, whatever tickles your fancy. FanDuel.com/SECU has got you covered. All right, close it on out there. Let's go ahead and see where this LSU coaching search goes. I can tell you what, this, my friends, is the ripple effect of all ripple effects. We thought we knew what was going on when Saban decided to call it a career and Kalen DeBoer came on down from Seattle and what that did to the coaching search. Folks, that was the appetizer for what we know about this type of job. I'm Cole Thompson. Until next time, folks, LSU. It's a fresh start, but you ain't going to get another one after this. So you better make it count. Peace.